Dear students, in the last two lectures on the topic oncogenesis and metabolism of xenobiotics, we have covered all the reactions of phase 1, and we have also studied in detail the role of cytochrome P450 system in catalyzing important reactions of phase 1, for example, hydroxylation. In today's lecture, we are going to study first conjugation reactions or phase 2 reactions of metabolism of xenobiotics, and then we are going to see some factors which may affect the activities of xenobiotic metabolizing enzymes, eventually leading to varied responses of xenobiotics. Biochemical reactions of phase 2. Phase 2 reactions are simply termed as conjugation reactions. Conjugation reactions make xenobiotics ready to get excreted out of the body by transforming them into more water-soluble metabolites. And as a result of which, xenobiotics or compounds become more non-toxic or least toxic. So that when they leave body, they are basically released in that form that they can preserve or protect the environment. Now, conjugating agents or the molecules which are used to conjugate xenobiotics involved in phase 2 are glucuronic acid, sulfate, glutathione, acetyl-CoA, methylated compounds, for example S-adenosylmethionine, and amino acids like glycine and glutamine. The very first reaction of phase 2 is considered as the most frequent conjugation reaction, and this is simply called as glucuronidation, as the name is indicating that this reaction uses glucuronic acid. So the most notable example of glucuronidation is conjugation of bilirubin. When bilirubin gets conjugated with glucuronic acid, then it leaves the body in the form of glucuronide, which is the water-soluble product. In this reaction, UDP glucuronic acid, which is an acidic form of glucose, is used to donate its glucuronyl group. Enzyme that catalyzes glucuronidation is called glucuronyl transferase, and this enzyme is found in both endoplasmic reticulum and cytosol. Now here is the reaction of glucuronidation. This is your xenobiotic that has already been prepared in phase 1. As you can see, hydroxyl group attached with it. Now this xenobiotic is going to become more water soluble by conjugating with UDP glucuronic acid. And here you can get this product which is called as R-glucuronide. And this is the water soluble form of your xenobiotic that has already been fixed or prepared in phase 1. Now UDP leaves the reaction as side product, and here is the enzyme, that is UDP glucuronyl transferase or UDP glucuronyl transferase, which catalyzes this reaction. There are many molecules, for instance 2-acetyl-aminofluorine, which is a carcinogen, meprovamate, which is a tranquilizer or anti-anxiety drug, then aniline, benzoic acid, phenol, which are found in many drugs, and even many steroids get all excreted from the body as water-soluble metabolites in the form of glucuronides. Now, glucuronide is capable to get attached with oxygen, nitrogen, or sulfur groups of these compounds and even other substrates. Second most important reaction of phase 2 is sulfation. That indicates addition of sulfate to xenobiotic. Many compounds, for example phenolic and alcoholic compounds like indole, cresol, that are formed in the gut after metabolism get conjugated with sulfate group in the hepatocytes. Donor of sulfate group is PAPS, that is phosphoadenosine phosphosulfate, and this is also called as active sulfate. Enzyme that catalyzes sulfation is sulfotransferase. Here are the reactions that show sulfation, and the very first reaction is the general reaction, in which xenobiotic that has been prepared in phase 1 is going to be sulfated with PAPs, and you are going to get this product, which is simply called as sulfated water soluble product, which can be easily excreted from the body. And here the PAPs is released in the form of PAP after removing its sulfate group. Similarly, if you have phenol and indole, and these are going to be sulfated, you can get these products. Like from phenol you can get phenyl sulfate, from indole you can get indoxysulfate. So these are water soluble metabolites that can easily leave the body. In the same way, the drug paracetamol or acetaminophen can also be conjugated in liver by the same process, which is called sulfation. The third most important reaction of phase 2 is glutathionation. That is basically addition of glutathione to xenobiotic. As you know that glutathione, which is also called as gamma-glutamyl cysteine-glycine, is a type of tripeptide, and it contains 3 amino acids: glutamic acid, cysteine, and glycine. It is also abbreviated as GSH. G for glutathione and SH is indicating the sulfhydryl or thiol group of its cysteine amino acid, and this is showing that this sulfhydryl group is present in its reduced form. Potentially toxic and harmful xenobiotics undergo glutathionation, for example, many types of carcinogens. And this is the reaction which is catalyzed by glutathione S transferase for glutathionation. Here you have your xenobiotic, and this binds with glutathione, which is present here in its reduced form, and as a result of which you can get this product, and this product is water soluble, which can easily leave the body. Now, glutathione S transferase, which catalyzes this reaction, is found in excessive amounts in the cytosol of liver, and this is found in lower amounts in other tissues. There are many types of glutathione S transferases which are found in human tissues, and these glutathione S transferases show broad substrate specificities, which mean that one type can bind to many substrates. Supposedly, if extremely toxic or harmful xenobiotics escape the process of glutathionation and cannot be conjugated well with the glutathione, then these toxic xenobiotics target nucleic acids or even cellular proteins, and as a result of which they may impart serious cellular damage. Therefore, GSH is considered as an important defense mechanism in order to handle these toxic compounds or toxic xenobiotics. For example, some drugs or even some cancer-inducing agents. If the concentration of GSH is observed low in a tissue, then that tissue can undergo more serious injury by those chemicals which are toxic in nature. Okay, the conjugates that we get after glutathionation can even be further metabolized so that they can be converted into more and more water-soluble forms before the process of final excretion. For example, the glutamate and glycine amino acids of glutathione are removed by specific enzymes, and then another group, which is called acetyl group, which is taken by acetyl-CoA, this is added to the remaining cysteine group of glutathione. Now, the compound that we get after this transformation is called mercapturic acid. Now, this mercapturic acid is basically a conjugate of only acetyl and cysteine, and this is the more water-soluble metabolite that we get after this reaction. And now it is easily available to be excreted out of the body through urination. Another important reaction of phase 2 is acetylation, which is simply the incorporation of acetyl group to xenobiotic. So this is the reaction. As you can see that your xenobiotic, which is represented by X, it is going to bind with acetyl-CoA, and acetyl X is the water-soluble metabolite or the conjugate which we are going to get after this reaction, and coenzyme A leaves the reaction as side product. So it means that acetyl-CoA in this reaction acts as a acetyl group donor, and this is also called as active acetate. This reaction is catalyzed by acetyl transferase, which is found in the cytosolic compartment of many tissues, especially it is found in hepatocytes. Now we're going to see one of the important clinical aspects which is related with acetylation. There is a drug called isoniazid, and it is used for the treatment of tuberculosis. In the body, it undergoes acetylation in the liver with the help of acetyl transferase. But if there is any polymorphism in acetyl transferase, which means that the acetyl transferase is unable to perform its proper function because it has been genetically altered by polymorphism. So those individuals who are having polymorphic forms of acetyl transferase can be classified as slow acetylator or fast acetylator, and as a result of which that the rate at which the drugs are cleared from the body will be affected. For example, the slow acetylators or the individuals who are having polymorphic form of acetyl transferase that shows a slow acetylation, so those individuals would be having more toxic effects of isoniazid because these individuals won't be able to clear this drug from the body, and as a result of which that drug, that is isoniazid, would persist in the body and it can give some toxic effects. Now the last reaction that we are going to see under phase 2 is methylation. Certain xenobiotics can undergo methylation as well. That is the simple addition of methyl group, and for this methyl transferases are used. Donor of methyl group is SAM, which is acetinosyl methionine. Phase 3 of metabolism of xenobiotics. This is not a very common phase. It exists rarely. It depends upon the type of xenobiotic. Only if the xenobiotic is extremely harmful or toxic, then phase 3 is needed, otherwise not. The most common example of phase 3 reaction is further conjugation with glutathione that we have studied in detail already. The only purpose of phase 3, like I said, is to make your xenobiotic more water soluble, more polar, so that it can be excreted from the body in least harmful form. Excretory routes through which xenobiotics leave the body include simply urine, bile, feces, sweat, and breath. Now we are going to see factors that may affect activities of xenobiotic metabolizing enzymes, and these factors are numerous. And activities of these enzymes may show different responses in different species. All the individuals cannot show same responses with same xenobiotics, and this is because of all these factors. So toxicity or carcinogenicity associated with some xenobiotics, this is variable. This is not same. And why it is variable? Because of these factors, like I said. For example, if the individuals are having polymorphic forms or some genetically modified forms of xenobiotic metabolizing enzyme, so their behavior towards xenobiotics metabolism would be different. For example, we have seen the example of acetylation today, that there may be slow acetylator or there may be fast acetylator due to polymorphism in acetyl transferase enzyme. Similarly, mechanism of induction we have seen in detail in our last lecture, that this induction may also affect the activity of xenobiotic metabolizing enzymes. There are certain inducers, for example drugs like phenobarbital, then polychlorinated biphenyls, and even certain hydrocarbons, which may affect the activity of enzymes. And thus, the behavior of xenobiotic in that particular individual will be different. Then age and gender also matter a lot. Even metabolites of some xenobiotics can themselves inhibit or stimulate the activities of their own enzymes, as a result of which the dose or the amount of dose of certain drugs for those patients, it would be different. Similarly, diseases of the liver, for example, cirrhosis of the liver, and as we know that liver is the main site for the metabolism of xenobiotics. So if there is cirrhosis of the liver or any other disease of the liver in which liver is non-functional, so then it can also affect the activities of drug metabolizing enzymes. And in these patients, we have to adjust the dose of the drug. Okay, students, activity for you. You are supposed to recall today's lecture and give the answers of these two queries. I'm going to reveal the answers. If you have answered both queries appropriately, it means you have understood the all concepts of today's lecture.